Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Today, let's talk how to get PR. How do you actually get visibility? How can you land Forbes and all the things? So I brought in Allison Carter. She is a Seattle mom of two, and she helps female-owned businesses scale and gain massive visibility and credibility through simple PR strategies while skyrocketing their sales with her creative diversifying strategies. She's been featured in Oprah, Forbes, Better Home and Gardens, by the Stewart, Buzzfeed, Real Simple, and more. We have a really fun conversation, so let's dive in. Hey, Allison, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's dive in. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
My name's Allison Carter, and I'm a Seattle mom of two. And I have a business called Allison Carter Celebrates that has had many facelifts and pivots over the years. It started as a digital party planning business where I helped busy moms plan parties in a digital way. And that quickly transitioned into a podcast. People were like, okay, parties, what do I do for Valentine's Day? What do I do for back to school? Like, how do I make that special for my kids and help me? And so I was like, well, I could be a party blogger, or I have two little kids at home, a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old. So like party blogging and taking pictures of staged parties doesn't sound all that fun for me. So let's do a podcast. So that was really successful. That transitioned into a subscription box company that I became pretty well known for, called Memories and Moments Unwrapped. And as I was really building this celebration business and this kind of expertness in this holiday celebration expert life, I started getting a lot of media attention, and I started getting my business featured in media and a lot of interview requests and speaking and different things. And so I was like, wow, I can grow my business and my credibility and my visibility, my audience, through really taking advantage of these media features. And it's all free. Like this is this strategy that I could tap into. And so I started doing that, and other small businesses, as I was growing, kind of were like, how are you doing that? How did you get featured in Forbes? How did you get featured in Buzzfeed? Or how did you do that? And I started helping, and I started helping other small businesses. And so now this year I've really stepped into that coaching role in helping small businesses get a visible presence in the media for their business, grow with their eyeballs and their credibility. And so help grow their sales. And so now I'm in this like full on coach hat mode. In the many pivots and evolutions of Allison Carter Celebrates, but it's been so fun to serve in this unique way. So yeah, that's the little nutshell, and we'll go dive into all of the little parts through our conversation. But that's the the top part of what I do.
What an evolution.
I know, it's crazy. It's weird. Like never would I thought. I was a second grade teacher before I had my daughter. And I mean, never in my whole life would I think I would even start a business. I had two entrepreneur parents, and I actually was like, I'm never going to own my own business. It's way too stressful. Like it's up and down. It's unpredictable. It's you, you have to do everything. And I was like, I have always wanted to be a teacher. I loved teaching. And then my kids just were more of a priority than other people's kids. I mean, to put it bluntly, I didn't know how to do both. But then I also didn't know how to just be a stay-at-home mom. And so trying to navigate that life and what that looked like, and how I could pour back into my creative self and have an identity outside of that is, really the stepping stone into what this has offered, and the crazy doors that it's opened, and the way that I get to show up and serve other people and connect and talk to you, and all the fun things that I get to do now that literally stemmed from one idea that popped into my head through a conversation.
I love it. So I would definitely want to chat PR things with you. Yeah, you said you landed Forbes. How did that happen?
It was my first major feature. So I really was like, okay, social media, I can continue playing this Instagram game. Like you can go to my Instagram. I have just under 5,000 followers. It's not like I have a big Instagram following in any sort of way, but I have a really like dedicated following that I've grown and engaged following, but I can only play that social media game so far in terms of visibility. And so if I wanted to expand in a bigger splash, I wanted to try my hand at PR and media features. And I'm someone who's very much like why not me? Like if they say no, they say no. Like what, I don't lose it. I wasn't already in Oprah. So like, what am I going to lose if they say no? And so I was like, I'm just going to go for it. So I was in a random Facebook group. I can't even remember what it was. It was some free thing that I was in when I first started my business. You know, you do all the webinars and the free Facebook groups and you're like, okay, I'm going to piecemeal this thing together.
Doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, sure. I don't know anything. And so I'm going to drink from the fire hose. Anyways, like a freelancer at Forbes was posted that they were looking for women's stories to highlight in a series that they were doing about woman-founded companies. And so I was like, well, done. Like I'm going to write my first pitch and I'm with the intention that she's going to say no, because the zero chance that I am going to get featured in Forbes as a baby business. I was barely a year into my business at that point. But I pitched her because I wanted to follow up and ask her opinion on what I could have done better in my pitch. I wanted to learn how to pitch better. So that was my sole motivation. And she was like, yes, you stood out, like all of the submissions, like your voice came through, your personality, like I want to know more about this story. Like, can you get on the phone with me? And I'm like, what? Okay. Oh my God. I called my dad. Dad, I'm going to get featured in Forbes. And he was like, what? For this like party thing that you're doing? Like, I mean, it was crazy. And so it was an article about like shedding your shoulds and going after something creative and like, you know, really kind of going after an idea that you had and creating something out of nothing. And so that was the first major feature I got. And then it was a little bite of the apple and like, okay, what else can I win? Like what else? And then it became a game. Like, what else can I land? If I can land Forbes as a baby business with no credibility, like behind my name whatsoever, like what else can I go after? And so when I was in the party space, I was in the celebration world. So clearly Queen Martha is the big dog. And so I pitched Martha and that turned into a yes. And I was a very regular contributor for Martha for a while. And then Oprah like came from Martha, and an editor that I built a relationship with referred me to an article that they wrote. And it just has spiraled into Real Simple, Buzzfeed, CNN, like multiple places that I've kind of cracked this code, I guess, in showing up in a way that is different than a lot of PR agencies out there. And then a lot of, you know, companies that outsource this don't show up in the same way and don't really land a lot. PR's insanely expensive. Like it is big bucks. And so if we can kind of figure out hacks to do this for free as part of our marketing strategy and really like prioritize visibility and a bigger splash and a presence on the internet and like generating Google juice and SEO, like that is where the sales are and the audience is. Or we can continue banging our head against the wall with the Instagram game, you know.
I don't like it. Yeah. I'm like, no social media, please help me build a business without social media.
100%.
So
yes,
annoying.
That's what I teach a lot of people. Yes. It's hard.
So what I heard you say, you didn't say this, but this is what I heard is go for it and just ask and be unattached to the outcome.
Oh my gosh, for sure. Like I've always say anyone that works with me, you literally have nothing to lose because you do not have it already. Like I said at the beginning, I didn't have Martha Stewart's logo on my website. Like, so I didn't have anything taken away from me. Does the no like sting? Sure. Whatever. You spent time writing that pitch. You get a ghost or a no. Okay, move on. Like, it doesn't mean you can't circle back and pitch them again. Doesn't mean that that's just a closed door forever. it just means that that story idea wasn't the right fit, but keep nurturing the relationship and keep connecting and keep showing up like a real human being. That is the marker that differentiates a lot of what I teach versus.
So when you say showing up like a human being, how does that come across through a pitch, an email?
So the number one way that I differentiate a pitch for everybody that I teach or for that I've done myself is service is first. So nobody cares about you is a message that I share with basically anybody that I come in contact with. Like literally nobody cares about you. And this is something that you can probably like back me up on as a host that gets pitched quite often. When somebody pitches a pitch all about them and how fancy they are and how amazing they are and how they've done all of these things, and they forget the number one part of the pitch, how you and all that fanciness can impact the audience. That is the biggest miss. So they show up feeling like they have to prove themselves. And this is what happens a lot with publicists. And when you have a publisher, like a PR firm represent you and write your pitch for you, you lose that authenticity because they're trying to sell you and your credibility, but they're forgetting how you individually can impact that person's audience. So with like an audience of small business owners, I can show up and I can serve your audience really well. And I can help them do this for themselves and see that it's actually not that hard and not that intimidating. If you just kind of follow some same steps and you just decide to put yourself out there, I can help encourage and take that stigma out of you have to be fancy or further along to implement PR. But I care about your audience and I care about the success of your audience because that builds trust with me. And trust is the number one thing that's going to lead to a sale. So if I show up on this podcast today and I just talk about me and all of the fancy logos that are on my website and all the cool things that I do in my business, and I forget to actually teach your people, nobody's coming to hang out with me. Like they're like, okay, peace out. And it also is not a good reflection on Rachel because she brought somebody that she's entrusting to be in front of her audience and that's going to serve them well. And instead of putting someone in front of everybody listening right now that trusts you and your judgment, and I'm just going to sit and sell you, like, no way. Like that's not how this works. And so when you show up like, okay, this is what I can do. This is how I can help. Like this is a huge strategy that these people are missing. That is totally organic. That is totally free. That does take time, but what doesn't? But if you prioritize the things that matter and you stay consistent, this can have a major impact on these people's businesses. And it's something that they're most likely not doing. So let's help them, start, and let's help them implement some things and give them some really easy tips to start. So both of us continue building trust with this audience, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. People listen to podcasts because they trust the value that they're going to get. They trust the host. And when a pitch comes across as me, and very self-serving, it's an immediate turnoff. Like everybody has gotten a copy and paste pitch. And it is like the death of a lot of people's pitching careers because they're never going to get a yes. It just like and then they're go, well, I wonder why it's not working. Well, you made it all about you and your job is to make it about them.
For sure. I don't even see those. So pitches that come in for like me to be on the podcast or to be on, like, I never even see them. Yes. Ones that come with a specific angle of this is how I'm going to serve your audience through this way. Those get sent to me for my approval. Otherwise it's like, nope.
Totally. Well, but you can go back and see like, what is her name again? Shoot, that emailed me. Michelle. Like she probably will be like, the amount of horrible pitches you get, like, I probably
that are copy and pasted.
How many self-serving pitches that she gets, and she's probably like, half of them I don't even respond to, because that is when I was hosting my podcast, the amount of pitches that were coming in, a lot of them from publicists. And I turned down a lot of bigger names and authors and stuff because it was annoying. And I did everything in my power for years to nurture a community and with my listenership to build that trust. And like, I'm not going to put someone in front of you that is just going to sell you on your book. Like, and I'm just another stop on their tour and they're never going to share about my podcast. So it's actually not really doing anything for me anyways. Like that is, I didn't want to break that trust. That trust was everything to me. It was way more important to me than having some person come on and talk about the book that they just want my audience to buy and then not giving them anything further from that.
Right. Okay. So we have them in mind, basically. We're not thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about how can we serve their audience. Then what goes into actually making contact, reaching out, all that?
Yep. So I always have 5 parts of a pitch. So you have your introduction where you're introducing yourself. So I'm blank, founder of blank, and I help blank do blank. You can fill in the blanks. You want to include 2 links in your pitch. Your link to your name is going to be your most credible social media. So Instagram or TikTok obviously is on the rise. And so if you have a really credible presence on TikTok, link it to that. Your business name will be linked to your website. That's it. Go back on the links, shut them down. That's all you get. If they want to know more, they'll click over and know more. And then I always have some sort of genuine connection. Like what is something that I saw you post on social media, an episode that you did, not some skeezy showing up like, oh my God, Rachel, I am your biggest fan. I have listened to every dang episode that you have put out because nobody does that. Like, no, that's not, we don't have time for that. Like, but it's like something that is actually beneficial. Like Pinterest is a huge reason why I'm sitting here today, because Pinterest and parties and celebration go hand in hand. Pinterest built the business that I ran. Like it was 90% of my traffic was Pinterest.
Wow. That's awesome.
I understand the power of your business. That's a connection that I used in that pitch. And so it was something that like, just, is like a conversation, what you would say to that person if you were having a conversation, not just some sort of random thing that you shove in. Then you want to talk about how you are going to be relatable and relevant to that person's audience. So small business owners looking to make an impact. What's the biggest way to make an impact? PR and visibility, and really sharing your story to the masses, getting your tips and your expertise and your inspiration and your stories out on a bigger scale. That is relevant. And that is also relatable. I'm a small business owner. Also, I do this myself. I've never paid for this. That's also relatable to the audience that is listening right now. And then you move into your story ideas, which is a really like, these are the things we can talk about, or these are the things I could write or contribute to an article about. And so parts of a pitch, like how to get started with your PR, why PR is important. I also have had major transitions in my business. So pivoting, rebuilding an audience, repairing an audience that kind of got broken and the rug pulled out from under them when you transition your business into something completely different and your ideal customer and everything. That's also a part of my story, and that shows up relatable and relevant to someone that has an idea and is too nervous to like obliterate the audience that they've created. And so those are just those tip ideas. Like, this is what I can share. And that's the part where of your pitch where you can show up and you can say, like, this is what I can teach on. This is what I am credible source. This is how you can trust me to teach your people. And then the 5th part of your pitch is always your assertive closing. Like, I am assertive. I am not like, thank you for considering, hope to chat with you soon. I'm like, I landed this interview. We're going to get on like Zoom together. Like, I'm looking forward to chatting. Let me know your availability so we can get something on the calendar. Like, be confident, be assertive, because it's just going to reflect on you as an expert that they can trust to put in front of your audience.
That part, I think that's huge. I was just talking about confidence with, I run a higher level group coaching program called Activate. And one of them was like, I'm brand new. I'm like inviting experts to be a part of a summit. Like, why would they want to do it with me? And I'm like, when someone approaches me with confidence, I'm so much more likely to say yes, as opposed to someone's like, I'm brand new. I've never done this before. You're my first time asking. But if I've said yes to people and it's their very first summit, because I'm like, they owned it. And I was like, yeah, I want to be a part of it. Just like their confidence and the vision that they created around it.
Totally. And so that reflects, and I think like you can really bring your personality out in your email. Like Michelle wrote back that in your email, that was a yes to me. Like we really enjoyed reading your application. And we want to know more about your story. That's because I weave my personality through things. I have a very strong voice that comes across in my emails and my social posts. And I have like a silly, outgoing personality that I'm very comfortable showcasing. And I use that, I don't want to say to my advantage, but kind of, because I know how to.
Yeah, it's smart.
And I also want to set myself apart as somebody that is going to give you an enjoyable conversation to listen to and a fun back and forth, and somebody that you're like, wow, I could totally like want to learn more for her. I can see myself being friends with her. Like she's someone that I would sit on the deck with and have a scratch mark, like one hundo. So that's a huge part of the brand that I've built, is being that bestie next to you that is like cheering you on, that's going to take you out for margs, and also really going to help you build your business through these visibility strategies and really showing up authentically as yourself. And people, I think, get scared at the word pitch. They think that it has to be fancier than it needs to be, or they think it needs to be really professional. And some like a simple thing to get around that is using contractions and you making your pitch conversational. And that's not saying I'm Allison Carter. I am Allison Carter. Like just those simple things of how things become readable is really helpful in showcasing that, like, oh, I'm talking to a person on the other side of that computer. Like you're a person, you're a small business owner, you're someone who I can have a conversation with. You're not this like, intimidating presence that a lot of people think is on the other side of that pitch. It's just a writer. It's just a freelancer. It's just a podcast host. It's just someone else out there hustling to build their business, like just like you, and you can relate to them and like on that level and be okay, having a conversation. Like, would I send a pitch with a bunch of like F-bombs? Like, probably not, like, depending on the podcast, but like, depends on the audience, but you show up in a way that's professional, but also that feels very natural and conversational to you. You don't have to be buttoned up if that's not authentic to you, because then when you get on a podcast interview or you write an article for someone and you have a totally different voice than your pitch, it becomes very disjointed and there's some like confusion there, and you want to be real and show up as yourself the whole time anyways.
For sure. What about local media exposure? Do you think that's valuable for businesses like ours?
Totally. So I've been on a couple local news shows or like our local morning show, different things like that. It just, again, how can you serve the viewers and how can you serve the listeners or the readers or whatever it is that you're pitching? So if you're pitching like Seattle has a big magazine called 425 and it's all about like lifestyle and different things like that. And they also highlight small business owners. So something where I showcase my story as a Seattle mom, like running this business and helping other businesses, then that's something that would totally make sense to pitch. What I was doing with my subscription boxes, I did a whole segment on holiday activities for busy moms and like how you can use the box and do all these Christmas activities. Obviously, no brainer. It's very visual. It's like in your face. You can see exactly what I'm doing. It was a really easy segment to land. So thinking of it in a way, service providers, this is harder for them to local wise for it to be relevant for that audience. So if you can spin it as your story of showing up as a small business showcase or how you're impacting other businesses. So here's this Orlando like business owner who is making an impact doing this, this, and this, then that angle can be beneficial. But for local to teach like Pinterest strategies or for me to go on a local show and teach like PR strategies, it wouldn't make sense because it wouldn't make sense to that audience that is listening. And every single thing that you need to do has to funnel directly into impacting that audience.
Got it. What didn't I ask you about PR that might be relevant? You're like, oh my gosh, all the things.
I know.
Like, what would be most important?
Yes, I think that really coming up with, I get asked a lot, like, well, what am I supposed to say? Like, what am I supposed to pitch? Like, and I kind of take people that I work through like this exercise that's called my expert buckets. And I'm a mom. So in my mind, they're like beach buckets, and they're kind of your core brand pillars, or the things that you are like, yes, I can talk about this, easy, done. Like I can talk about PR, I can talk about pivoting, and I can talk about like being relatable, like stories that sell. Like I can talk about those 3 buckets. And then when you're filling those buckets with all your sand toys, those are all your story ideas. So 5 parts of a pitch, there goes a sand toy. Like how to make your pitch more relatable, there goes a sand toy. Like filling those buckets with all those story ideas. So it's really taking that core idea or that core pillar of yours that you talk about in your business, that you are a credible source. Like, what do people refer you to? Like, oh, Allison's going to help you, get more eyeballs on your business. Or like, if you want scrappy PR tips, like Allison's your girl. Like, what do people refer you to? And then going through that and filling that bucket and pulling it apart into being like, okay, here I have pitching. What are all the different story ideas, all the different tips, all the different things that I can say related to pitching? So then each of those could become a blog post I write for myself to get my own SEO and play the Google game myself, something that I then put on Pinterest to lead toward that traffic, or something I can repurpose into an email, or I can do a reel on that, then I can repurpose it into an email, then I can put it on my blog, then I also could pitch it to somebody else and link it to their blog. Like, you can have your content really work way smarter for you than most all of us do. And so that expert buckets is really kind of that first little foray into, okay, let's get 20 ideas. And if you take those 3 buckets and you pull apart, I mean, you can pull 10 story ideas very easily from that pretty quickly. And there's 30 ideas that you can either turn into a pitch, or that you can put on social media as content, or blog posts that you have written for months that you can, add. So that's kind of the first part in really like figuring out what it is you're going to pitch. And then seasonal and evergreen content is another thing that people get stuck on. I don't recommend showing up on podcasts to sell something. And I don't recommend showing up on podcasts to talk about something seasonally, because I want somebody in next June to binge your show and find my episode, and it's going to be relevant to them still. And so if I was talking about some sort of limited time offer, or doors are closing or something like that, one, I would not sell something on a podcast anyways, but we can talk about that next. But it doesn't make sense. And also it's hard to talk about like back to school or holidays unless that podcast is specifically catered towards more of a seasonal listenership. So really coming with podcasts in particular as your best content, your best evergreen content that doesn't go out of season or anything like that. And then speaking of podcast interviews, the ending of the interview, you're going to ask me, where can you find me? Like, where's all the things? Where can we hang out more, learn more? Email list should be your only thing that you offer. Like that should be your number one goal of coming on a podcast, is to get people on your email list. So you're going to immediately lose people by saying, okay, I have a monthly membership. I have a course. I have an event that I host. I have like all this stuff. I have all that stuff, but I don't need to share all of that and give all of these links that are crazy confusing, and nobody driving their kid to school right now is going to stop and think of that link or remember it ever. But they might remember like an easy URL to my pitching checklist or something like that. And so in that way of strategically showing up as a motivation is, okay, like, let's see, when you're showing up on these different areas or where you want that traffic to come to your website, obviously a sale would be great, but that's also expecting someone to get married to you before you even have like a first date. And so you want to have some sort of email that you can grab to bring them into your community, invite them into your community, and really nurture that relationship.
Definitely. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
I think that making an impact just means inspiring others to make their own impact. Like I really, really want to be a testament of somebody that lives my life by my own rules, and I get to make up the business that I want to make up, and I get to lead in the way that I lead, and I want to make that lasting impact on my own kids and like showcase that when they move forward and one idea out of their head can totally spark some presence that, you know, really touches other people's lives and helps them. Like, I mean, from me learning and navigating this random PR thing that never in my million world, like would I ever think, I've been able to have other businesses get featured and really build their audiences and their credibility to financially impact their families and impact their communities and just leave these little lasting touches. Like, I'm a big believer in like ripples and the ripple effect. And ripple was actually my word of the year for this year, and having that big, like bolder presence of how much that really goes and expands out and touches it when we don't really even realize, like, we don't really realize who needed to see that reel or who needed to stumble upon that blog post, or someone listening that's like, God, I am so stuck and banging my head against a wall because I'm spending an hour filming this reel and I get 400 views. And like, I've been looking for something other than social media to try and build my business and try and get eyeballs. Maybe this is the thing that I needed to, you know, push myself in that direction and get inspired. And someone listening could be the next Forbes feature, could be the next Today Show like guest. I mean, you really don't know. And you also really don't know who's listening and who's on the other side and showing up and saying, like, my community is very, very into and knows exactly where I want to go. Like, a Today Show would be like, they've always, like, anything to Today Show, I get tagged or I get like a message sent to me or something like that. And you never know who's friends with some PA or friend, like cousin is some assistant producer or something. Like, you just don't know. And so it's like, be okay sharing the journey that you're going through also, and being that leader in saying, okay, I'll go through the door, I'll open the door, and I'm going to see what's on the other side of it. And if it's safe, I'll bring you along too. And you just don't know who needs that leading. And so I think really just being comfortable in how you're showing up and being confident in how you're showing up is just this lasting impact that ripples more and more and more that we don't really realize. I think we don't realize the impact that we have because we get so bogged down into all of the things that we do every single day. That, you know, those people watching, those silent followers, or those ride or die people that we don't even really know are ride or die people in our community. But they're the first ones to recommend you or support you. You know, you're really doing this to build this community of people that are supportive, and that you can in turn help them make whatever impact they would like to do with however they serve and show up in the world.
Yeah. Awesome. What's one of the best books you've read?
I have ADHD, and so I'm not the best at like business books. I love it. I love the honesty. I start and stop. I'm like a good like fiction person because I get attached to like the story and then I need to finish. Business books, I have a really hard time finishing all the way because I get distracted by something else. But I have really been enjoying Pat Flynn's Superfans.
He's awesome.
Lately. Yes, I really love him. I like his writing style, and that has been a really fun and like beneficial read for me, and kind of in this transition that I am right now in this other business. And as I'm rebuilding my audience also, it's been a good one.
Yeah. And where can we connect with you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Allison Carter Celebrates. Everywhere on the internet, Allison Carter Celebrates, you will find me. And in my Instagram bio or my website, I have a free pitching checklist. It's called the Basic Pitch Checklist. And it goes through all of the do's and don'ts of writing a pitch, sending a pitch, all the things that we worry about with the pitch. We've got a nice little checklist there for you to check off and follow along and be like, okay, got my pitch ready to send, and just send the dang thing. Like, it just, I tell my community, you just write the pitch. And if you're a drinker, you take a shot, you take a glug of wine, you put some deodorant on, and you send the pitch, because you're going to have the sweaty armpits. You're going to have the sweaty palms. You're going to be so nervous to send that first one, and you're going to do it. And you're going to be like, okay, that was not bad. Okay, I think I could do it again. and then you stick with it. And consistency really, really matters when it comes to pitching yourself and just getting in a little routine.
Cool. Well, you're awesome, Allison. Thank you
so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Of course.